The Galactic Confederation's war room hummed with the quiet efficiency of a civilization that had conquered 17 solar systems without breaking a sweat. Elder Zin's crystalline form pulsed with mild amusement as he reviewed the tactical display. Humans, he said, the word dripping with disdain, possess no energy shields, no quantum weaponry, no neural hive mind coordination. Their largest vessels barely qualify as interplanetary transports. Strategic analyst Keth flicked through holographic data streams with practiced ease. Their reaction times are slower than our auxiliary combat drones. Individual neural processing capacity falls below our civilian standard. Most telling of all, they still experience what they call fear during combat scenarios. Fear, Zin repeated, his voice crystallizing the word like it was some exotic specimen. How primitive. When do we begin the harvest? Tomorrow, Elder? 3 colony ships are attempting to establish an outpost in the Kepler 442 system. We'll demonstrate our superiority there, then move to their homeworld once they surrender. Captain Rosa Valdez was having the worst day of her career, and that was saying something considering she'd once had to manually restart a fusion reactor while suffering from food poisoning. The New Horizons bridge shuddered under another impact, sparks cascading from overhead panels like the galaxy's most inconvenient fireworks display. Engineering? I need those shields up yesterday, she barked into her cum. Working on it, Captain, came Javi Chenikofer's voice, strained, but somehow still managing to sound like he was enjoying himself. Though I should mention, these alien weapons are operating on principles that technically shouldn't exist according to our physics textbooks. I'm starting to think we might have gotten a few things wrong. The main display flickered, showing 3 massive alien vessels hanging in space like predatory beetles. They were beautiful in the way that expensive funeral arrangements were beautiful, all smooth curves and ominous glowing bits. Captain Communications Officer Park called out, "We're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English." Rosa felt her stomach drop. Perfect English meant they'd been studying humanity for a while. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was melodious, almost musical, the kind of casual authority that came from never having been told no. Humans of the vessel New Horizon. I am Strategic Analyst Keth of the Galactic Confederation. Your species has been evaluated and found adequate for incorporation into our labor collective. Surrender immediately, and your termination will be painless. Rosa looked around the bridge at her crew. 26 people, most of them barely out of the academy. All of them staring at her with the kind of expression that said they were really hoping. She had some brilliant plan hidden up her sleeve. She didn't. This is Captain Valdez of the New Horizon, she replied, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I'm afraid we're going to have to decline your generous offer. We have a strict policy against unpaid internships. There was a pause. Then, I believe there has been a translation error. We are not offering employment. We are demanding surrender. I'm politely telling you to go perform an anatomically impossible act involving your reproductive organs, assuming you have any. Down in engineering, Javi was elbow deep in what used to be the primary power coupling, and was now more accurately described as expensive metallic spaghetti. The alien weapons were doing something to their systems that his engineering training had definitely not covered. The energy signatures were all wrong, bending space-time in ways that made his instruments throw what could only be described as electronic tantrums. Hey, Rosa, he called over the cum. I've got good news and bad news. Good news is, I think I figured out how their weapons work. The bad news is that according to everything we know about physics, we should all be dead right now. Another impact rattled the ship. HFY's coffee mug, which had somehow survived 3 years of interstellar travel and countless emergency maneuvers, finally gave up and shattered against the bulkhead. Now it's personal, he muttered. On the Confederation flagship, Keth was experiencing something he hadn't felt in over 2 centuries of military analysis. Confusion. Human vessels should have been debrised by now. Their primitive shields had failed within the first 30 seconds of engagement. Their weapons couldn't even scratch Confederation holes, and yet, status report, he demanded. The human vessel continues to maneuver, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking with uncertainty. They've lost primary power 3 times, but somehow keep bringing systems back online. Their engineering section appears to be improvising. Keth's sensory stalks twitched. Elaborate. They're rerouting power through what appears to be their waste reclamation system and their food preparation units, and something called a coffee maker that's somehow generating 14% more energy than it should be consuming. Keth stared at the tactical display. The human ship was bleeding atmosphere, listing badly to starboard, and according to all reasonable projections, should have been a cloud of superheated plasma minutes ago. Instead, it was still shooting back with weapons that were held together with what his scanners identified as duct tape and spite. Sir, his communications officer interjected. The humans are hailing us again. Put them through. Captain Valdez's face appeared on the main screen, a slight cut on her forehead adding character to what Keth had to admit was a surprisingly determined expression. Behind her, he could see crew members frantically working at damaged stations. Their movements quick and efficient despite the obvious stress. Strategic Analyst Keth, she said pleasantly. I wanted to thank you for this lovely demonstration of your superior technology. Really impressive light show. We were wondering, though, if you'd like to see what we can do when we stop being polite. Keth's primary brain processed this statement. The humans had been holding back. Impossible. His analysis clearly showed they were operating at maximum capacity. Captain Valdez, he replied, allowing a note of condescension to color his voice. Your vessel is damaged beyond repair. Your weapons are primitive. Your crew exhibits clear signs of stress-induced decision-making impairment. Logic dictates immediate surrender. Rosa's smile was the kind that made insurance companies nervous. You know what, Keth? You're absolutely right. We're damaged, our weapons are primitive, and we're definitely not thinking straight. But here's the thing about humans you might have missed in your analysis. She leaned forward slightly. We're really good at being unreasonable. The transmission cut out. Javi had given up on conventional engineering about 20 minutes ago, and was now operating in what he liked to call creative problem-solving mode. This involved a lot of swearing, several violations of basic safety protocols, and a complete disregard for manufacturer warranties. Rosa, he called over the com. Remember that experimental energy coupling we were specifically told never to activate under any circumstances? The one that could theoretically tear a hole in space-time? That's the one. How attached are we to existing in a stable reality? Rosa considered this. Through the viewports, she could see the alien ships moving into what was clearly a final attack formation. Her crew was exhausted. Their systems were failing, and surrender would mean slavery at best, extinction at worst. Not very attached at all, Javi. Light it up. Copy that. If anyone's keeping score, this is officially the worst idea I've ever had, and I once tried to make pizza in a fusion reactor. The experimental coupling that Javi was now gleefully activating had been developed by a team of theoretical physicists. Would probably assume someone would stop them before they actually built the thing. It was designed to tap directly into quantum vacuum fluctuations. Sounded impressive until you realized that quantum vacuum fluctuations was physics speak for we're not entirely sure what happens next. What happened next was that the New Horizon suddenly blazed with energy that registered on sensors as please recalibrate your instruments because this can't be right. On the Confederation flagship, alarms were making sounds that roughly translated to something has gone terribly wrong and we're not sure what. Analysis. Keth demanded. The human vessel is... I'm not sure how to report this, sir. It appears to be generating energy from nothing. The readings are beyond our measurement capabilities. That's impossible. Yes, sir. Nevertheless, they're doing it. Keth watched his tactical display with growing unease as the human ship, which moments before had been limping through space like a wounded animal, suddenly accelerated toward his fleet with what could only be described as enthusiastic aggression. Evasive maneuvers, he ordered. It was too late. The New Horizon struck the lead Confederation vessel with the kind of impact that made physicists question their life choices. The alien ship, despite shields that could deflect the energy output of a small star, crumpled like aluminum foil. Rosa felt the impact through the deck plating and grinned fiercely. Javi, remind me to give theoretical physics a very enthusiastic performance review. Captain Park called out, the other two ships are retreating. They're actually running away. On the fleeing Confederation flagship, Keth was rapidly recalculating everything he thought he knew about humanity. The tactical display showed the New Horizon pursuing his vessels, somehow maintaining acceleration despite having no visible means of propulsion. His sensors detected massive gravitational anomalies around the human ship, as if space itself was bending to accommodate their impossible velocity. Sir, his communications officer reported, We're receiving another transmission from the humans. Keth's mandibles clicked nervously. Audio only. Captain Valdez's voice filled the bridge, and Keth was disturbed to note she sounded almost cheerful. Keth, this is Rosa. We wanted to let you know that we've decided to accept your invitation to demonstrate our capabilities. Consider this our formal introduction to galactic politics, Captain Valdez, Keth managed. Your vessel appears to be violating several fundamental laws of physics. Oh, that's nothing new. Humans have been ignoring inconvenient rules since we figured out how to make fire. The trick is to be too stubborn to accept that something is impossible. Another Confederation ship vanished from Keth's tactical display, consumed by what his sensors unhelpfully described as an event. Your species was evaluated as primitive, Keth said, desperation creeping into his harmonious voice. You lack advanced technology, coordinated hive mind thinking, energy-based physiology. You experience fear. Yeah, we do experience fear, Rosa agreed. Fear is what tells you something is dangerous. You know what humans do when we're afraid. Keth's primary brain was already calculating the answer, but he asked anyway. What? We get creative. The last Confederation vessel to survive the encounter limped back to the war room 72 hours later, its hull scarred by weapons that shouldn't exist, and its crew suffering from what the medical bay could only diagnose as acute reality displacement syndrome. Elder Zin's crystalline form had lost most of its luminescence. As he reviewed Keth's report, explain to me again how 26 primitive beings in a damaged vessel destroyed 2 of our finest warships and forced the 3rd to retreat. Keth's sensory stalks drooped with exhaustion. They refused to accept defeat, Elder. Even when logic dictated surrender, even when their technology failed, they improvised. They turned their waste reclamation system into a weapons array. They powered their engines with kitchen appliances, activated an experimental device that our physicists assure me cannot possibly work, and yet it did work. Yes, Elder, it worked very effectively. Zin was quiet for a long moment. Your recommendation? We revise our assessment immediately. Humans are not weak because they experience fear. They are dangerous precisely because they do. Fear drives them to innovate, to take risks that our more logical species would never consider. They don't surrender when defeat is certain. They change the rules of engagement. In our expansion into their territory, Keth's mandibles clicked decisively. I recommend we pretend we never found them and focus on literally any other species in the galaxy. Perhaps the Zephyrians. They seem nice. 3 months later, Captain Rosa Valdez sat in her new office at Fleet Command, reviewing reports of 17 different alien species that had suddenly developed urgent business in other sectors of the galaxy. The experimental energy coupling had been reverse-engineered and was now standard equipment on all human vessels, though the engineering corps had issued strict guidelines about not using it for pizza preparation. Javi knocked on her door frame, holding 2 cups of coffee that smelled like victory and questionable life choices. So, he said, settling into the chair across from her desk, heard anything from our Confederation friends lately? Funny you should ask. Rosa accepted the coffee gratefully. We received a formal diplomatic package yesterday. Apparently, we've been inducted into something called the Species of Extreme Caution Registry. It comes with a very polite request that we please stay in our own corner of the galaxy and not innovate anything new for at least 50 years. How thoughtful of them. There was also a personal note from strategic analyst Keth. He's apparently retired from military analysis and taken up poetry. He wanted to thank us for teaching him that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to admit they're beaten. Javi raised his coffee cup in a mock toast to being unreasonable, to getting creative when we're scared. They clinked cups, and somewhere in the depths of space, 17 different species breathed collective sighs of relief that the humans seemed content to stay home and work on their gardening projects. For now. Because the thing about humans that Keth had finally understood, the thing that made them truly dangerous, wasn't their technology or their stubbornness, or even their remarkable talent for turning household appliances into weapons of mass destruction. It was that they were just getting started.